Thanks for joining us today. I'm Cody Holyoke. Having the right to vote is an essential part of being an American. If you like a candidate, you vote for him. If you like an issue, you weigh in at the polls. But as we've seen lately in Missouri, even if voters support something, there's an effort to undo their decision or change the rules if the party in power doesn't like it. This has happened with a number of topics, most recently abortion rights, paid leave, redistricting, even the initiative petition process itself, which lets Missouri voters craft and pass laws and constitutional amendments if support is strong enough statewide. Recently, Republicans have reversed laws, rammed major changes through the General Assembly, or sent issues back to voters repackaged in an effort to overturn them. The pushback is palpable as people and groups go to Jeff City, protesting changes to issues they've either already approved at the polls or weren't allowed to weigh in on at all. And they're calling out politicians in power for making the issues more confusing than they have to be.
They are not making it easier for voters to know what a yes vote means on any measure. We believe that you should be able to have clear language on the ballot so that people really know what they're voting on.
All of this is happening, mind you, while several court battles play out over issues that affect your health care or even representation in Congress. One, a trial starting Monday, gets to the heart of an issue that we've been watching for years. Ballot language, the repackaging I mentioned. A group called People Not Politicians is fighting Missouri Secretary of State Denny Hoskins on a number of fronts. It submitted 300,000 signatures to try and force a vote on new Republican-designed congressional maps. And it's taking Secretary Hoskins to trial to have a judge decide what their referendum on redistricting would look like for voters if it makes it to the polls. The Secretary of State writes the language and originally wanted the measure to say the existing gerrymandered congressional plan protects incumbent politicians and that a new one better reflects statewide voting patterns. Well, that's part of a statement Hoskins' own attorneys recently conceded was unfair. He wants another shot at that language. Plaintiffs want a judge to handle it now.
This didn't used to be a problem, even with Republican and Democratic secretaries of state. You know, there's always a little arguing of it, but you never had secretaries going into a process saying, yeah, I know I'm going to lose this round, but I'm going to get 2 more chances. It has really pushed the bounds of normalcy through the history of Missouri.
That's one of 2 trials starting this week and one of several legal fights playing out over redistricting right now. Let's get to the heart of the matter with our roundtable of journalists. Please welcome back Brian Ellison, host contributor with KCUR, and KMBC 9 political reporter Michael Mahoney. All right, gentlemen, the redistricting case is notable, but I think it's also important to point out here, fights over ballot language are becoming the norm for Secretary Hoskins.
That's right. And as we heard, it's not unprecedented that the Secretary of State's ballot language would be challenged, sometimes because it's too political or partisan, but it does seem like it has reached a new level. In fact, it seems to be a different approach to the task of Secretary of State. Denny Hoskins has essentially taken the position that he's an elected official, he's a partisan official. His job is to try to get his partisan agenda, and he writes ballot language that is intended to accomplish that until the courts tell him that he has to stop, and that they end up writing the language that replaces his.
Yeah, that is, and I agree with you, a very different approach to the ballot language process. There are arguments over this all the time. It's very common. But this does seem to be a policy to try and implement a partisan or inject a partisan context into this when it's supposed to be neutral language, because that's what most voters read at the polls. They don't go through the entire piece of legislation. They read that summary and they rely on that summary to be accurate.
Is this Secretary Hoskins just testing the water legally of what he's allowed to do?
I think he's testing the waters, and I think he's also willingly trying to push the boundaries on it.
Well, and remember that the legislature actually tried to help him out by setting this law last year that allowed him 3 attempts to write language that the courts would find acceptable. That law was just struck down by the Missouri Supreme Court, which is apparently going to return some power back to the courts to control that language if even on the first attempt it seems too partisan and political.
As we've said, redistricting ballot language, this trial, one of 2 trials set to start this week. There are more coming. The other case, at least this week, involves the ACLU. Brian.
That's right. Well, boy, we have a lot of court cases about Missouri redistricting. This week's case is going to challenge the idea that the redistricted, newly gerrymandered map should take effect immediately, even now while candidates are filing for elections, even though the voters have a chance to weigh in on this map in November. Traditionally in Missouri, that map wouldn't have taken effect until after the Missouri voters have their chance to weigh in, but that's not the interpretation that Denny Hoskins and Attorney General Catherine Hanaway have implemented. Remember, there's another case next week, another case challenging the entire effort, whether there should be a mid-decade redistricting at all. We have a lot that still needs to be determined.
Yeah, there are, I believe, off the top of my head, 10 separate cases, close to 10 at the very least. So the idea of what Missourians are going to vote for and what districts they're going to vote on will probably not be settled into the summer. It won't be in time for the August primary, and so it's very likely that this redistricting question, if it gets on the ballot at all, will be in November. So there are lots of moving parts and lots of balls in the air on this. It's a really unusual situation.
Yeah, and you mentioned elections. In all this, it's important to remember this is an election year, and there's confusion over whether these maps are even into effect. It's filing season. Deadlines are at the end of the month.
Right.
We can't know until this is settled in court.
Right. And residency, people say that's a big deal. There are lots of members of Congress that don't live in their districts. It's quite common. But the question, and you nailed it right there, Cleaver doesn't know where his district is. I may not know where my district is. Brian, you may not know where yours. Cody, people won't know that until deep into this election season. And it goes for the candidates as well as they try to organize their campaigns as to what counties they may be involved in and what counties aren't.
And again, all of this up to a judge or several judges.
Many judges over the next many months.
All right, we'll continue to watch it. Brian Ellison, Michael Mahoney, thank you so much. Count on KMBC 9 News at Heart of the Matter. We'll pass along updates as we keep track of the bills affecting your money, your family, and our future.